Hey, Mama! If you're looking to have a deeper relationship with Jesus and searching for a community of Christian moms, I'm so glad you are here. I'm a Christian wife and mom who is passionate about helping mamas finally let go of the mom guilt and learn to live loved. I want to help mamas see that they are truly and perfectly loved, even especially in motherhood. Welcome back to the Live Loved Mom podcast. I'm Sindy, your host. I'm a wife, mom, and lover of Jesus. Let's dig into God's Word together and get encouraged while we're on this journey of motherhood. Let's learn some parenting tips and mom hacks and learn how to raise our kids God's way. So, grab your coffee, listen on your drive to work, or maybe put that forgotten load of laundry back to wash again. Let's tackle mom guilt together and learn to live loved. Hey, mamas! So today I have a special guest on the podcast. I have Miss Jacky Davey here with us, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with her because I know it's going to be so helpful for so many of you mamas out there. Jacky is founder of Purple Tree Coaching and Consulting. She resides in South Florida with her husband and her two children. She's a bold, inspiring leader, motivator, and ambassador for Christ. So, Jacky, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Cindy, for the invite. I've actually been listening to your podcast more and more. I love the combinations of the biblical principles, the mom tips, the hacks. And so thank you. Just really honored to be here and just spend some time with you today.
Yay, I'm so excited. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you. How did you even get started into this coaching thing? Was that always what you planned on doing? How did you end up here?
So it's funny, right? I I think the word coaching now has been used a lot and is well known, especially during COVID time. But before
Mhm.
that, I thought about coaching, I thought of sports, right? Dealing with
Right.
sports, having a tennis
A
coach or
coach for the
a
team.
football coach, or
Hmm.
so I was seamlessly doing this within my professional environments and within my teams. And it was actually one of my coworkers who told me, he's like, have you ever considered coaching? And I was like, no, I really don't like sports like that. And he was like, no, no, not that kind of coaching. He's like, executive coaching or leadership coaching.
Mm.
And I said, what do you mean? He's like, you need to connect with my mom. She is an executive coach and works with CEOs, like big, companies. And I was like, oh, that seemed just kind of like too much for me. So that's kind of where I was introduced to the word coaching. And then from that, I met with her actually and spent some time in prayer and saying, okay, Lord, I feel like I have all the qualities of just, I love coming alongside of people. I love
Mm.
empowering, encouraging, connecting, and elevating others. And so I looked into it. And then, I think it was like a year after that, I actually went to Washington, D.C. to get my certification to become a coach, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't do anything with it. And it's part of my journey of me growing in confidence in who I am and understanding my giftings, my talents, and those things that I mentioned that have, right, of encouragement and equipping and elevating others. I didn't see that in me necessarily just because of what things have happened to me and pain and shame that I was carrying. So although people saw that around me, I didn't quite see it. So I had to go through a journey of like developing myself, growing in Christ, knowing who he is, who I am, how he
Mm.
sees me, so that then the coaching certification became useful. And I felt like, okay, Lord, you're calling me to really establish this. And so that's how now have been for over a year now working towards building our coaching practice and specifically focusing on purpose coaching and helping people identify and see themselves who they are for who God created them to be so that they can grow in confidence in him and be able to use their talents and giftings for his kingdom, for their purposes that they were created for. So it's just been my own journey, as you can see, of building that confidence and seeing myself so that that's how just my journey with coaching came about. That's the short version to spare
Yeah.
you all the details.
No, but I love that, you're sharing that you actually went through this process yourself. Like it was a journey for you
Yeah.
to discover yourself and discover who you are in Christ. Um, for you to be able to I guess, build this coaching business. So,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to the moms out there that are kind of feel lost and they feel like they don't have any purpose or they don't feel fulfilled in where they are in life right now? What would be like a good tip or advice that you would give them?
Oh yeah. I'll tell you my story with that. When I felt lost and I didn't know who I was, is I would say the biggest tip is identify where you're tying your identity to, right? Are
Mm,
you tying it to a role, to a profession, to a
wow.
task, to an
Yeah.
assignment? And so I'll tell you as a mom, so I have, two children with me, but one is in heaven. And so about 11 years ago, before I got married, I always had an inspiration to be a mom, stay home mom, raise children. And so that was my hope and my dreams and where I was striving for. And so it was after we got pregnant and we were our baby got diagnosed with multiple abnormalities that our life really changed. And the doctor said after that he was not going to make it very much, but by God's grace, he made it to 38 weeks. We got to
Um,
hold him, we got to meet him, and then shortly after that, he passed away.
yeah.
So I say this because as a where was my identity rooted in that time
Mm,
was being a mom. And I was striving for that. I was like, I'm going to be a mom, and that's all I want to be. And that's who I am. And as a woman, right, we have this already concept of like we're nurturing, we're loving, so we have to have families and children. And so think about it, when some of us don't have children or have children and lose them, or don't have a husband, right, or have them and lose them, right, or we have a job when we don't have a job, think about those things. So I would say my identity was rooted in that. And when I
yeah.
received and then lost it, I was broken. I was lost. And so
Mm,
that was part of the bigger story that I was saying earlier, how God brought me into, okay, that's not who I created you to be, right? I
yeah.
created you to be, yes, my disciple, to be a light, to be the salt, to be an ambassador. And I bless you with a family, and I bless you with your children.
Hmm.
They're part of your journey, they're part of your life, but they are not part of who I am, my core and my being. And so I would advise to moms just like me, to identify, it's my core, my being rooted in a role, right? Of being a
Wow.
mom, being a
Yeah.
wife, of being a worker, a ministry leader.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
Is that
that I
it?
think that is very insightful because I think, especially as women, as moms, we tend to attach like our identity with either our career or our roles. And it it's for everybody. Like our identity should be rooted in Christ, not in our roles. But especially when a role is kind of very close to our heart, we kind of
Mhm.
attach
Yeah,
ourselves to it and attach our identity to it.
we all do
Um,
it.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely agree with, kind of doing a self-assessment and seeing, hey, like maybe my identity is rooted in something other than what it should be rooted in. And maybe that's why I feel lost. So I
Yeah.
think that is a very great point. Um, so, you're a busy mom. You have the coaching business, you have two kids, you have a husband. So I know that you can relate to the other busy moms out there. What tips would you give them as far as like time management and prioritizing their lives? Because so many things, can get in the way of what truly is valuable to us. So, what would you say is a
Oh.
good time management tip?
I love this question. This is something that I've been working on myself, right? As a mom, trying to find that balance, that work-life balance, because I've shared with you in the past that I struggle with like, okay, being a stay-home mom and working full-time. juggling the full time, juggling the part time. And so just striving to finding a balance. I feel like there is no perfect balance. We can always improve, but some of my tips I would say goes with, again, identifying who you are, who God created you to be. What are those giftings or those talents, your personality type, right? So a lot of us, we play this comparison game. We see and follow a lot of influencers and see them doing things and organizing and managing their time, but
Mhm.
and we try to follow those tips, but we don't know our personality and our making. And
Wow.
so what I recommend my clients is know who you are, know your behaviors, know your limitations, know your strengths, and then from that point, then let's work on time management skills that are according to you and be able to we have a program where we do an assessment to identify, okay, who are you,
Mhm.
how do you communicate, how do you behave, are you fast paced, are you slow paced, are you
Mhm.
task oriented, are you people oriented, are you risk
Okay.
averse, are you let's go and have adventures, right, are you
Mhm.
super optimistic, and so when somebody says, hey, let's do this, you're like, yes, let's go, without checking your calendar, right? Or are
Mhm.
you more reserved and you're like, no, let me wait and check, let me get back to you, right? So what kind of personality are we? So moms out there, know how you behave, know
Yeah.
your tendencies. So that way, when we're talking about time management, I'll share me. I'm a very friendly, outgoing person, if you can tell. So I was very optimistic with my time. And so I have a lot of friends, love to connect, love lunch dates, coffee dates, love all of that. But when I didn't have a handle on my calendar because I will often say yes, yes to this event, yes to this party, yes to this, yes to ministry, and because I was very optimistic. And what that led me to was overbooking myself
Mm.
and being worn out and burnt out because I didn't have limitations. So once I understood my personality type is very optimistic, saying yes, and I'm very people oriented, and
Mhm.
then I said, okay, Jacky, you know what? Let's prepare a plan. Let's say, okay, how much time do you have during a week so that you can have that lunch date or you can have that coffee date or you can
Mhm.
have this time, right? And so it's a matter of knowing who you are first, your tendencies, right? Your limitations, your how you behave, and then looking at what things you want to fill your calendar with. That's
Mm.
my second tip. So people often tell me, your life is so busy. And I say, you know what? My life was busy, has always been busy. We're all busy, but I make time for those things that are important to me. And my calendar is now more balanced because I actually look at my calendar and say, okay, I want family time. I want time with the Lord. I want, fitness, physical, like, gym time. I want those coffee days, lunch days, because as a people person, it's important for me. If I just go on weeks after weeks of no connecting with people, then I'm going to feel drained and depressed because I'm not seeing anybody, right? So, but it's the other way. The other side is if we do too much of that, then we feel overwhelmed. So, first step, know who you are, your tendencies, limitations, how you behave. Second tip, look at your calendar and say, how do you want to spend time? You're going to be busy, but
Mm.
what do you want to allocate time for? And
Right.
then create a plan. And it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy. It takes accountability. It takes intentionality. It
Mhm.
takes some tools and some tips. And through my journey with time management, I share my tips, what I've done, what I use, such as calendar blocking, inventorying my time, assessing distractions, all of those things that we can have a whole conversation on that. But it really it's is eye-opening when you say, hey, it's all comes down to understanding who you are and how you behave. Once you're aware of those things, creating awareness,
Mhm.
then you can make those changes. Because a lot of times, Cindy, we want to make changes. We read
Right.
books, we read blogs, we follow people. I want to change, I want to do this, but we
Mhm.
don't know how currently we are doing things. How do we behave? It comes down to that. So there's a lot of like inner work. So then you can improve. So,
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, it's more of an individual thing. You
mhm.
know, we could read all the like self-help books and read
Yeah,
all the blogs, which are more generalized. But
exactly.
truly to get to like the nitty-gritty of it, we have to kind of be self-aware and assess ourselves, so
Mhm.
that we can come up with the proper plan,
For
and
you.
prioritize properly and manage our time properly and, make our calendar properly. And it's funny because you were saying that you're like a people person, and I'm like the opposite.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
like not the
exactly.
person
See?
that wants to be out all the time. I'm the person that wants to stay home all the time. But I do value, spending time with friends and family, but it's it's out of my comfort zone when I do it. So
Yeah.
I thought that was funny because you're like, I'm a people person. I need to have that time on my schedule. So I know some of the things, well, maybe you can elaborate. What are some of the things that you cover in Purple Tree Coaching?
Yes. So first and foremost, we do purpose coaching. So the purpose of purpose coaching is to really come alongside the individual to help them see themselves as God sees them. And
Mm,
that's key, right? Because we often see ourselves really different. Have you ever
yeah.
is when people say, I see that in you? Remember years ago, I told you I had a friend who was like, have you ever considered coaching? I was like, wait,
Hmm.
what? And people will second that and say, yeah, Jacky, you're this. And I was like, I don't see that, right? We don't see
Right.
that. So
And
especially
ourselves. Yeah.
when we feel unworthy, we're
Mm,
feeling lost, we're feeling
hmm.
stuck. Others validate us before we validate ourselves, but
Mm,
our creator. So what we focus on is bringing you closer to the Lord, help pointing you to seek Jesus, God. Who is He? Understanding who He is, and then who you are, who He created you to be, so that you start seeing yourself as He sees you. So that's the whole aspect of purpose coaching. What we do, but we do
hmm.
it in different levels. So I do one-on-one coaching virtually or in person. And then we do our group coaching where we have classes up to 7 or 8 people virtually in person. And then the last thing that we're doing is our workshops. So I know that some people cannot commit to 8 or 10 week course. That's a lot, especially talking about busy moms that you
Hmm.
want to grow and you want to develop. So I've been doing from elements of our purpose coaching program, I've been putting together workshops on how are you wired,
Mm,
identifying who you are, right?
yeah.
And learning about your personalities, workshops on identifying core values. The importance of knowing your values is huge because it really guides every decision that you make, including your time.
Mm,
When you talk about
yeah.
time, right?
Right.
And then also being intentional with time. We have a time management workshop. And lastly, we also talk about smarter goal setting, which really helps you in setting priorities and setting proper goals in a way that's achievable to you. And this is all centered around catering these things to you. It's customized to you.
Hmm.
So when you were talking earlier about all of these books and resources are great. I use them. I've read them.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts. I read blogs. I have several books, Audible, everything. I'm doing all the things, but I'm now looking at them through the lens of, okay, who am I? How was I created? What are those strengths? And so even though that may work for her or him, I filter it through what works for me. So then
Mm,
I'm not trying to be someone that I wasn't created to be because that's
gotcha.
where, right? That's where we are not successful. So we try to help people be successful in pursuing their purpose in Christ. And so that's the program. So it's all centered around that purpose coaching. And those are different mediums that we do that. And if you are listening and you are a business professional or an entrepreneur, we also offer these workshops in a organizational team level
Oh,
for
okay.
those managers, directors, entrepreneurs who want to bring this to their
The
teams.
team, yeah.
Exactly, and help them grow and see themselves. We have received some great results. I've had people who have been part of my purpose coaching program who are directors and leaders in business, and they have brought it to their teams. And we work
Mm.
as small as we can do one-on-one to small teams of 3 up to 20 plus.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
been, yeah. Like I said, I'm really passionate about helping and caring for the person, right? And so when it's a group setting, I try to really spend time one-on-one because I value that very much so. So yeah.
That's so beautiful. I love your mission. I feel aligns a lot with what I'm trying to do with this podcast, right? Is for moms and for women to like really know who they truly are through
Mhm.
Christ, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. You mentioned smarter goals. So what are some tips that you could give us if we're trying to set a goal?
Yes. So, um, we use the SMART system, and this has been around for a long time. I think back in the 1950s, there was an article written, and so SMART goals helps gives you like a metric to do set up your goals, like making them specific,
Mhm.
measurable, achievable, realistic, or relevant and time bound. So we go through that. And so what we did in Purple Tree, we added an E and an R for smarter. So I'll
Ah,
tell you in a
okay.
minute what that means. And so if you ladies look it up, you read about smarter goals. There's so many resources, tactics out there. Why I like SMART goals and we made them smarter is because it's really simple. It takes down one goal, right? And breaks it down. So sometimes we say, okay, let's say I want to work on my website. Let's just say that. And you're like, okay, that's my goal. I want to work on my website. And you leave it at that. You're like, okay, when do you start? When do you end?
Mhm.
Do you piece it out? And so that's what we do. It's like, okay, you want to work on your website. Okay, well, let's make it specific. I want to work on my website. I want to focus on my landing page. I want to make sure that, it includes this video that I'm promoting the service, and I'm going to start in the month of September and hopefully have it done by the end of October. Now, you
Mhm.
see how you created a very specific goal, and you're
Right.
saying, I'm not going to work on the entire website because that's unrealistic, right? You made it realistic, you made it relevant. I'm going to work on the website. I'm going to pace myself, just focus on one thing. And it was time bound. You said you had a start and an end date. And I think
Right.
that's what happens with a lot of people is that they set goals, they don't have a start and an end date. Where the smarter comes in is the E and the R, where I tell people, again, my personality type is I like encouraging others, but I
Mhm.
also like encouragement and I like celebrations. And
Yeah.
so the E is for encourage yourself, celebrate the wins. So if my goal is to build my landing page for my website is, September through October, then sometime in the middle, I'm going to celebrate my progress
Mm.
by doing something. I don't know what it is. You have to come up with a way to celebrate. And then the R is super important, especially for moms. And we forget this a lot, is risk. So in project management, when they're building a project, they put this is the risk, is assessing risk, projecting what can go wrong in this project that can keep us away from fulfilling it. And
Wow.
so in your
As a
exactly
mom, a lot of things.
a lot of things. So think
Yeah.
about it. As I'm an entrepreneur, right? So okay, I
Yeah.
want to create my website. I will say what can go wrong. The kids can get sick,
Right.
the
You
school
could
can
get
close
sick.
down. I could
Yeah.
get sick,
Hmm.
right? Something. So when you put in there a risk and you're kind of projecting it, you're not speaking on it, right? You're not saying this is going to happen, but you're like, okay,
Yes.
it helps you with your timeline. Say,
Yeah.
hey, maybe September through October is not realistic because we have soccer games coming up or competitions, or I know this is a busy season, so I need to again assess risk and what can push me from doing my goal, and so make it even more achievable for you. So the E and the R are super important things that, again, for my personality type, have helped me tremendously. But you see this a lot with fitness goals, right? They tell you in a lot of fitness and health programs, celebrate the wins. If you lose a
Yeah.
few pounds, go get your nails done, go do something for yourself nice, because what you do when you're encouraging yourself, it keeps you motivated to keep going. And
Hmm.
so the R is something that, if anybody can take anything away from that, assess risk, plan for it, so
Yeah.
that later on you don't feel discouraged because you didn't get it done.
So I love that because I've heard of SMART goals before, but I've never heard of like the last two letters that you just mentioned with the E and the
Yeah.
R. And the encouragement part, I love because I feel like a lot of times, we set a goal and we don't celebrate along the way. We wait until
Mhm.
like the very end of it. And then when we get to the end of it, we're kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the value is in the journey. The value is in the work that we're doing before we get to that end game. And the fact that you said encouragement and to like celebrate in the middle of it, I love that because that will motivate you to keep going, but also it will
Exactly.
help you to value the journey that you're going through, right? You're like, oh,
Exactly.
like I'm halfway there. Like, look what I've done so far. Even though I'm not at my goal yet, I've done this much so far. So I love that you said that. And then the risk management part, I've never heard of before, but I love because yes, like if we can plan ahead and anticipate things, then
Mm-hmm.
we can have, okay, hey, if my kid does get sick, maybe I should put like these extra days, maybe an extra 3 days, or add that to my time frame or something like that, right? Something where we can plan ahead if something is gonna happen in order for us to still be able to reach our goal. So I love, 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 love that part. Um, Let's see. So I think one of the things that I saw that you do offer is also about finding out how to hear from God and hearing God's voice. So what tip would you give us if we're struggling or we're not sure about how to hear God's voice?
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's one of our sections in our Purpose Journey program. And it's been eye-opening for me and for a lot of the students, because a lot of people come to the class and say, I don't ever hear from God. He doesn't
Mm,
speak to me. But by the time we finish, they're like, wow, he does speak to me.
yeah.
Because the thing is, Cindy, sometimes we miss it because we are so surrounded by so many distractions
Mhm.
internally and externally. So a lot of times we focus on the external distractions and disruptions, and as like the phones, our family, our jobs, or even social media, right? That's a big one.
Mhm.
But the internal is, yeah, I think, even bigger. Those are our thoughts, our doubts, the lies that keep us from hearing what he's speaking. So tips on how to hear from God is to, first and foremost, I would say, um, pay attention to patterns, rhythms, repetitions, right? So if you're asking God specifically about something, right, go and seek Him. Spend time. Like, I don't know if you do, journaling, right? Some people don't like to journal. I've actually grown to like and enjoy journaling. Some people just go for walks and they pray, or you're praying in the shower, you're praying while washing the dishes, which I do. I actually enjoy praying while I'm taking a shower. It's like my time alone. But as you seek the Lord, and you're asking, be specific. That will say the first thing. Don't be afraid to ask God and be bold, right? The word of God
Mm,
says to come boldly to his throne of grace, right?
yeah.
Come to him. I tell people often with the real, like with
Yeah.
rawest questions, ask him, say, Lord, do I do this? Is this what you want me to do? Speak to me, show me, ask him to speak to you. Say, I want to hear from you. That's number
Mm,
one. Ask him,
yeah.
be bold about it. Say, I want you to speak to me and I want to hear you. Number one, ask, right? Ask
Yeah.
and be bold about it. Number two, pay attention to the patterns. That was number two. Pay attention to the patterns. So, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen, and this has happened to me, that I'm asking him about something in particularly, and then I am driving and I'm hearing a quote and it has to do with that. I'm like, hey, this is weird. How, this something like it was very similar. Or you're driving and you see a sign, or you get home to school or a friend and they say the word, right? So, or even just later on, as you're talking to the kids, they bring something like repetition. So, Philippians 4, chapter 4, 6, that's a verse, right, about anxiety and
Yeah. Do
bringing
not
it,
be anxious about anything,
not be
but
anxious, right?
everything. Yes.
And so I say this as an example so people can understand. So let's say I'm praying about that. I'm like, do not be anxious. Earlier this week, I was feeling really anxious about something. And I was like, Lord, give me word, give me. And so I read Philippians 4, 6. And I was like, okay, God, thank you for the reminder. And then I was listening to one of your podcasts, and then
Mm.
you focus on Philippians 4, 6. And then
Um,
later on, I forget what was that I saw and read Philippians 4, 6. So
yeah.
a lot of times we think God, for us to hear from the Lord, it's like he opens up the windows of heaven and says, Jacky, I need to tell you this, right? But
Mm.
really, it happens in the rhythms of life, through a song, through even social media. I've had people say to me, listen, something that you said during class or in our conversation popped up again, and this when I was, just swiping through,
Mm.
or I was looking at this website. And so that's what I'm saying. Look at the rhythms, look at the threads, look at the common themes. That would be the second thing. And then the third thing that I would recommend to people is we have blind spots. And so we don't want to be like, well, is this God or is this me? So I would say go to a trusted friend, a spiritual leader, um, someone in your church or in your community where you can confide, someone that you can trust, someone that can guide you and help you pray, especially for those
Mm,
big asks, big questions, things that we're asking the Lord.
right.
To help us and speak to us, and someone that can you can bounce off and say, is this really God speaking to me? What is your perspective?
Hmm.
And I have done that in the past, and there's been alignment with that as well, right? And so it's almost like you have checkpoints to make sure. And also the fourth tip would be check it with his word. Does it align with his
Yeah.
word?
Yeah.
Right? Is there truth in that? God will never speak to you things that go against his Bible, his
Right.
word. That's his
No.
truth,
Hmm.
right? So if he's telling you you're hearing for you to do something that is totally against it, then that's probably not him.
Yeah.
So I hope this is helpful. That's been my practice to come before him, be bold about it, ask him the questions, and just keep asking him. Sometimes we ask one time and then we let it go.
Mm,
So I sometimes spend like a whole week asking him the same question and then
yeah.
asking him specific things. Even after I hear from him directly, I'm like, okay, but what's next? What else? Give me specifics, Lord, right? Just, help me understand further. Sometimes there is more specifics, sometimes there isn't. He just wants you to do it. He just wants you to obey. But once you take that step, then the next task or the next thing comes up, right? So be bold, come before him, ask him, spend time in his word, look for those repetitions, those rhythms that you see, and seek some spiritual advice, some spiritual counsel, a leader that can help you pray for those things, just to make sure that you're not blindsided by your own thoughts.
Yeah. No, I do love what you said. I think like one more thing that I would probably say for me is I had like, I agree with all of those, to definitely be bold, wrestle with the Lord, tell him how you feel and ask him to, speak to you. Um, Definitely spend time in his word, because I think that's like the main way is through his word.
Mhm.
But another thing that for me has been helpful is after asking the Lord is, like you said, to look for patterns and stuff, but to also just take some time to be still, right? Because I feel like we get so busy with all the things going on in our lives that we might just keep asking and asking. And the Lord is like, I kind of already gave you the answer, but you're not sitting still for you to hear me. Right. So I think
Amen.
sometimes it's important for us to take the time to just sit still with the Lord. So that we can hear him, because if we allow those distractions, like you mentioned, if we allow those distractions to kind of cloud our vision and our judgment, then it's hard for us to hear the
Yeah.
Lord because we have all of these distractions going on. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, like that was really good. um
That's a
and
great tip. And something that I practice, I do prayer walks and silent walks, but it's hard because those thoughts start coming, like I need to do laundry, did I take out the meat that I'm going to cook dinner, or
right.
did I email this client? And I'm like, no, Jacky, you have to stop. And I'm like, but even that, I'm praying, Lord, help me be silent, help my thoughts
Mm,
stop. Like you have to
yeah.
be excuse me, in constant prayer. But yeah, so I do the silent walks, I do the prayer walks. But often though, I'll tell you, Cindy, I love that you go in solitude with the Lord and in silence. It's really hard, I find, for especially women to be silent. So
Mm,
it's
yeah.
really, really hard.
But I'm
And
not
there's
even saying, it doesn't even have to be a walk. Like, yes, I love, doing the walks and stuff, but I'm not saying that it has to be that. I'm just saying that just just to stop our minds from
Mhm.
um just the business of it all. Like even if it's just for a few minutes,
Yeah.
just to kind of be still. Like be still and know that he is God and just rely on him and he will speak to you. He will.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No,
so
that's
I
fine.
love the prayer walk. I mean, I do that myself. I do go on walks.
But
And
do what you
like you
can
said,
do, right? Do what you
Right.
can do.
Even if
Maybe
it's
just
just
be
two
still.
minutes, a minute,
Yeah.
like whatever it is, like, all right, let me
Hmm.
just stop for a second. Lord, I need to hear you right now. Like you can do that like in the midst of the chaos that you have going on in your life. But I do think that it's important. And I'm only saying that because I've experienced it myself. I've been someone that's been asking the Lord for answers and answers. And you know, I just kept asking and asking and not necessarily have taken the time to be still and look for,
Mm,
the answer.
yeah. It's so
Um,
important. So
yeah,
good. Such a good reminder.
yeah. But thank you so much, Jackie. This was such a fun conversation.
Yes.
If you would just, share a little bit of your testimony. I mean, I know you shared like, some of it already, but if you would just share a little bit of your testimony, I feel like that will be very encouraging to a lot of the moms that
Yeah.
do listen to this podcast. And yeah, I just because I know like we sat and had coffee and I know that there's a little bit more to your story and I know that it will be encouraging to other moms. So if you could just share a little bit of your story and your testimony with us before I let you go.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. So, I'll go back to my origins. I was born and raised in Peru, and I moved here when I was 11. And it was when we moved here that we came to know Christ. That summer, I gave my life to Christ, and honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've made. And I grew up basically my youth years, my young adults in church, love church community, and I just enjoyed getting to know Christ and growing in Him. In my 20s, I got married, and as I said earlier, 6 years into our marriage, we were pregnant. And like I said, my goal in life, I'm a very goal driven person.
Mm,
And my goal in life was to be a mom and to kind of prep all of that. I mean, we were even preparing financially. Like, okay, once we have, once I get pregnant, my husband's name is JP. I was like, okay, you're going to work and be the sole provider, and then I'm going to stay home. We were like aiming for that. And
no.
can you just imagine when we got the
Yeah.
news and then, lost our baby boy? His name is John
Yeah.
Daniel.
Oh, I'm
This
so sorry.
September actually was, would birthday in heaven. He would have been
Yeah.
11. And
Oh,
so I often refer to that as part of my testimony because I was at that point that in my brokenness and when I just felt so lost is
yeah.
where he truly used that in my son's life, although short, right? Because he was only
Right.
here for 38 weeks, but he had a purpose. He had a
Right.
plan. And his
Wow.
purpose was to bring his mom closer to Jesus and to
Mm,
bring me to where I am today. And I'm forever grateful. I always tell my children, that are with me, living with me, saying, tell them, because of this little baby's life, I am a better mom today. And so
wow.
my journey continues with me feeling lost and grieving and the pain. If anyone is hearing this, I can relate. It's like nobody prepares you. There's
Mm,
this hole in your heart that you have forever. And I
yeah.
even experienced sharp pains in my heart.
Wow.
It was something that through time and grieving is a process, right? Some people can
Mhm.
grieve and is a journey. So like I said, my identity, who I was, who I thought I was rooted in that. And so after that, not having a baby, I kind of just took all of those desires, like, okay, who am I? What am I doing? What am I here for? And just kind of put it into my profession. My background is in ministry, working in churches, nonprofits. And so I kind of just took all that energy into that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to grow professionally. I'm going to commit to my role, excuse me. And then honestly, that was the struggle, right? Because my husband and I, we wanted to continue to have children. We were praying for that. And then I saw so many moms around me, right? Okay, we're going to get pregnant. We're going to go to work. We're going to take a maternity leave, come back to work and work full time. And I was like, what do I do here? It was like this tug of war, like, do I want to be a mom? Do I want to be full-time professional? What do I do? And I think I shared that with you. I really struggle after having my middle and my last baby, my baby girl. And I still was feeling lost. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I feel like if I chose my family, I would have seemed like I was not committed to my job. But if I chose my job, my work, I was not committed to my family. And I think this
Yeah.
is often how we feel as women, especially if you have a career, part-time, full-time. And so after my daughter was born, my third baby, I spiraled. I went on deep depression. It could have been associated to postpartum depression. I'm not so sure, but I felt like at that point, I everything just came crushing down, right? I had stood strong in my faith and trusting God to heal me and in his plan. But every pregnancy was so difficult after that. It was
Mm.
so painful. And I kind of suppressed my emotions, my feelings, and I wasn't self-aware. I didn't know who I was. And I was often seeking my validation, people telling me what to do, right? You tell me, my leaders, my family, who am I? What do I do? And I needed to encounter that. I needed to go through that to kind of bring me to where I am today. And it was about 4 years ago when COVID happened, where
Mm.
I literally was, I was like, do I stay working? Do I not? Remember, school's closed. I
Right.
had younger children. I was
Mm.
working, a full-time job with my kids at home, trying to work remote. My husband was trying to work remote. And at that point, I was like, you know what? We have to make a decision. It was for us, COVID, me leaving my job of 8 years was one of the best things that I could have done for myself. I think that's when I took a stand for me and I said, you know what? I need to care for myself. I
Mm.
was putting all my efforts to care for others, loving others, caring for others, which is something that I do. It's part also of who I am. I love putting other people before me. And it was almost unhealthy because it was leading me to a path that of
Yeah.
just breaking me. So anyways, COVID hit. I left my job, and this is where my journey came with God. And He showed me in that journey of leaving, once He had me and took away the distraction of work. And He showed me how I had allowed the losses, the pain to really hurt my relationship with Him.
Mm.
So I spoke of God's love to people, and we
Yeah.
often do that, right? In church, in our communities, we're like, God loves you. Yes, but we don't believe in his love. And I did not see that. He literally showed me how I was speaking of his love, but I didn't believe that he loved me. Because if
Mm.
he loved me, how would those things have happened to me? And it
Right.
wasn't just the loss of my son. There's other things, other losses, closed doors, rejection, and things that happened that for just time I'm not sharing. And so I was really broken. And so in that moment, he said, we need to work on rebuilding that
Mm.
love and then the trust. So think
Yeah.
about it. You don't trust a person unless you know them and you
Mm.
love them. And so it was one of the most rawest moments I have with the Lord. And I said, okay, I want to rebuild my relationship with you. I want
Mm.
you to show me how you love me. And I want you to show me, talk about being bold, right? I want
Yeah,
you
for
to show
sure.
me in tangible ways how you love me and how, I became authentic. And I think, Cindy, that was what happened. That was the pivotal point was all my brokenness, all my hurt, all my shame, all my guilt led me to a point of like just rock bottom. And
Mm.
that's where he was like, listen, I need you to come back to me. You are
Yeah.
my daughter. I need you to see yourself as who I created you to be, as fearfully
Mm.
and wonderfully made, as this beautiful masterpiece. I need to rebuild you, to edify you. And that's what we did. We've gone on this journey of about 4 years of rebuilding, reconstructing. I can now say that I love the Lord with all my heart and is authentic. And
Oh.
I trust him with my future. There was times where I didn't want to plan. I felt like my future was doomed. I couldn't organize things because I was like, nothing is gonna right. We became very pessimistic, and then, I'm telling you, I'm a very optimistic person. But sometimes, if we're not careful, the things that happen in our lives, the circumstances, the pain pushes us from being who we really were created to be. And
Mm.
so that's where I'm at. That's part of my testimony of just growing in Christ, seeking him. And one of the things that I did was this course were helping me identify my identity, my destiny, and my purpose in him. And I was so impacted. It was like a graduation moment where I said, okay, I want to bring this into my coaching practice. I want
Yeah.
to get certified to teach it. I want to encourage other men and women into this journey because it's a journey
Right.
that we're in together. And just like it helped me, I want to help others. And so that's my testimony. Sorry if it was a little long, but
No,
that's
not at all. Oh
my
my
passion
gosh.
behind it. It's really been a journey and I'm still growing. I don't have it all together.
No, none of us do, but I praise God that, you were able to go back to him and run to him And I feel
Mhm.
like that's the beautiful part of your testimony is that, in your brokenness, you still reached out to him and you say, like, show me that you love me.
Yeah.
And he showed you his love. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you
Mhm.
ended up with calling your coaching business Purple Tree Coaching?
Oh, yes. So when I was pregnant with John Daniel and we had given the news of that he was incompatible with life and that we could lose him, I remember sitting in our little apartment, my husband and I, we would often sit and pray, right? We had to pray through the whole journey.
Yeah.
And one day I was telling him, I was like, you know what? For God, there's nothing impossible. I was
Mm,
like, he can turn a tree purple. And I said purple because purple is my favorite color. And
wow.
so and I was saying that statement as a statement of faith, right?
Hmm.
He can move a mountain. It's kind of like saying he can move a mountain, right? So I was
Hmm.
like, he can, if he wants to, he can turn a tree purple. And so at
Yeah.
that moment, purple tree became a symbol of a statement of faith. Like for
Yeah.
God, there's nothing impossible. So purple tree, purple tree, purple tree. And so that we would say, that's a purple tree, that's a purple tree. So when after I left my job um, during COVID, we knew that I had to get back to work and we had to financially had to help support my family. And I enjoy working. I enjoy being with my family, but I also enjoy working. And so my husband was like, you know what? Let's not go back to full time because again, we're during COVID. Schools were closed.
Right.
But once school opened up, I started doing contract work and started establishing a business for tax purposes. And so we needed a name for the business. And so I came up with all of these professional names, right? JD Consulting, all of these things. And it just didn't seem like it was, clicking. And then I told him, I was like, what about Purple Tree Coaching Consulting? It was literally my last name. It was like in a list of 12 names, and
Mm,
the 12th name was Purple Tree Coaching and Consulting because we knew we wanted coaching and consulting in the name. And he was like, that's it.
wow.
That's you. That's who you are. That's our story. That's our journey. And think
Yeah.
about it, Sydney, right? Because you just heard my testimony, how my son's life led me to where I am today.
Right.
And so to honor him and to bring that into the whole just aspect of our business, which is a ministry too, it's beautiful. And so I love sharing that name, Purple Tree. It's more than just a business name, it's part of who we are and the
Yeah.
journey that God has taken us through. So
And that is so beautiful. Well,
yeah,
thank you so much, Jackie,
you're
for,
welcome.
coming on and giving us some great tips and, sharing your testimony with us. Um, just let us know how we can reach you, like social media, how can the moms get in contact with you?
Yes, I would love to have you ladies follow me. So my business page is Hello Purple Tree, and you can find me on Instagram and also on Facebook and our YouTube channel, Hello Purple Tree. And my personal page is Jacky.Davey, JACKY.DAVEY. And if you like to visit our website, you can go to purpletreeconsulting.com, and that's our website. And then we have resources, right? So for those of you that you're in your journey, you're feeling lost, as you said, Cindy, we have a purpose questionnaire that we offer for free to people to take that assessment and to evaluate where are you right now, and
Yeah.
love to connect with you and just talk about, those results in how you're seeing yourself, right? Did it surprise you? Does it challenge you? So we have
Mm.
some resources and more coming too. But yeah, that's my Instagram, my Facebook, and or if you'd like to email me, you can email me at Jacky@purpletreeconsulting.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Jackie. And all right, ladies, thank you for tuning in once again. And just remember to continue to learn to live loved. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I pray that it has blessed you in some way. If you found value in this episode, or you know a mama who could use some encouragement, please be sure to share the episode with them. Would you take just a few minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean a great deal to me if you could let me know what you thought of the episode. Be sure to follow us at Live Love Mom Podcast on Instagram. And if you haven't already, come join us in our free Live Love Mom community on Facebook. Let's mom alongside each other and continue to learn to live loved.